Being broke isn't just about having $0. It is about paying a premium for existing. We assume poverty is passive, but the math shows it is active compounding interest on survival. Today, we run the exact numbers to calculate the hidden poverty tax over a single lifetime. From toilet paper costs to predatory interest rates, we prove why it is expensive to be poor. A wealthy person spends money to make money, but a broke person spends money to fix problems. This difference creates a gap that widens every single day, regardless of how hard you work. We are analyzing 500 data points to visualize exactly where your money leaks out of the bucket. By the end of this hour, you will understand the mathematical trap that keeps millions stuck. Let us start with the most basic concept of financial physics, the Vimes-Boots theory of unfairness. A rich man buys $50 boots that last 10 years, keeping his feet dry and comfortable. A poor man can only afford $10 boots that leak and fall apart after one season. Over 10 years, the poor man spends $100 on boots and still has wet feet. The rich man spent half that amount and enjoyed dry feet simply because he had capital up front. This is not just a story about boots, it is the fundamental algorithm of the poverty trap. When you can't afford the upfront cost of efficiency, you are forced into the recurring cost of maintenance. We see this specifically in the grocery store, where the unit price destroys the monthly budget. Buying a single roll of toilet paper costs 3 times more per sheet than a bulk pack. If you only have $5, you cannot save money by purchasing the $20 bulk option. You are mathematically forced to make the bad financial decision because the good decision is too expensive. This creates a feedback loop where having less money forces you to spend more money every single day. Laundry detergent follows the exact same pricing model, punishing those who can only afford the small bottle. The poorer you are, the more you pay for every single wash load, creating a hygiene tax. Wealthy families have a pantry, which acts as a savings account against future inflation and price hikes. Poor families live hand to mouth, exposing them to the full volatility of daily market prices. When you live paycheck to paycheck, you cannot time the market. You must buy when you get paid. This means missing out on sales and bulk discounts simply because the cash flow does not align. Over a lifetime, this inability to buy in bulk costs the average low-income family thousands of dollars. Now let's apply this logic to the banking system, which penalizes you for having nothing. If your balance drops below a minimum threshold, the bank charges you a monthly maintenance fee. You are effectively paying the bank $12 a month for the privilege of them holding nothing. A wealthy account holder gets paid interest, while the broke account holder pays fees for the same service. Over a decade, these fees compound into thousands of dollars lost to the friction of being broke. Then we have the overdraft fee, a punitive charge for miscalculating your balance by a few cents. You buy a $4 coffee, go into the negative, and suddenly that coffee costs you $39. Banks made over $30 billion in overdraft fees in a single year from struggling customers. This is a wealth transfer from the people who have the least to the institutions with the most. If you can't access traditional banking, you are forced into the predatory world of check cashing services. To cash a paycheck without a bank account, you might lose up to 10% immediately. Working 40 hours a week means you are effectively working 4 of those hours for the check casher. You are paying a literal tax on your own income before you even spend a single dime. This financial friction extends into the credit system, where the cost of borrowing is determined by risk. If you are poor, you are considered high risk, so lenders charge you significantly higher interest rates. A wealthy person might get a car loan at 4%, while a poor person pays 20%. On a $20,000 car, this difference in interest adds thousands to the final price tag. The poor person ends up paying double the value of the car just to get to work. This is the subprime auto trap, where reliable transportation becomes a financial anchor that drags you down. If you miss a payment, they repossess the car, and you still owe the remaining balance. You are left with no car, no way to get to work, and a massive debt. This destroys your credit score, ensuring that any future loan will be even more expensive. This is a spiral that turns a temporary cash flow problem into a permanent financial disaster. Payday loans are the apex predator of this ecosystem, designed to trap you in eternal debt. You borrow $500 to cover rent, agreeing to pay it back in 2 weeks. But the annual interest rate on payday loans can exceed 400% in some states. If you can't pay it back immediately, the interest accumulates faster than you can possibly earn money. The average borrower ends up paying back nearly double what they borrowed in just 5 months. This industry thrives on repeat customers. Their business model depends on you failing to pay. They aren't selling you money, they are selling you time at a predatory markup rate. Every dollar spent on interest is a dollar that cannot be used to build a safety net. This lack of a safety net means that one emergency destroys years of financial progress. A flat tire or a broken tooth becomes a catastrophic event rather than a minor inconvenience. This financial friction extends into the credit system, where the cost of borrowing is determined by risk. If you have a low credit score, car insurance companies will charge you significantly higher premiums. Drivers with poor credit scores pay nearly double for car insurance compared to those with excellent scores. You are penalized for being poor even if your driving record is completely spotless and accident-free. They also use your zip code to determine rates, effectively taxing you for living in poorer neighborhoods. This creates a geography of poverty, where your address determines the price you pay for basic services. Late fees on utility bills are another penalty that only applies when you're short on cash. If you miss the electric bill, you pay a reconnection fee that can exceed the bill itself. Security deposits trap your limited capital in a landlord's account, earning zero interest for years on end. Consider the laundromat, a time and money sink that drains resources from those without in-unit machines. Doing laundry at a facility costs 4 times more per load than doing it at home. You also lose hours of productive time waiting for cycles to finish, unable to do anything else. Now we must address the largest expense in any budget, the cost of housing and renting shelter. Renting is the most expensive way to pay for housing because you are paying someone else's mortgage. A monthly mortgage payment is often hundreds of dollars cheaper than rent for the exact same property. But to access that lower monthly payment, you need a down payment that most people cannot save. The renter pays 100% interest as they retain zero equity after years of monthly payments. The homeowner builds wealth with every payment, effectively moving money from one pocket to another pocket. Inflation hurts renters the most because landlords can raise the rent every single year without limit. Homeowners with fixed-rate mortgages are immune to housing inflation, locking in their biggest cost for 30 years. Moving apartments is also incredibly expensive, requiring first month, last month, and a heavy security deposit. This high barrier to moving traps people in substandard housing because they cannot afford the exit fee. This leads to the slumlord economy, where tenants pay premium prices for dangerous and decaying living conditions. Poorly insulated apartments result in massive heating and cooling bills that destroy the monthly utility budget. This is known as energy poverty, where the poor pay a higher percentage of income for energy. Trying to heat a drafty home in winter is like trying to fill a bathtub without a plug. Old, inefficient appliances consume twice the electricity of modern ones, adding another hidden tax to the bill. A landlord has no incentive to buy an efficient fridge because the tenant pays the electric bill. The tenant cannot afford to upgrade the appliance, so they are stuck paying the higher operating costs. Substandard housing also carries a severe health tax, exposing families to mold, lead, and pest infestations. A child developing asthma from a moldy apartment creates medical bills that last for a lifetime. The cost of the doctor's visits and medication far exceeds the cost of fixing the mold problem. An eviction on your record acts like a criminal conviction, barring you from decent housing forever. Landlords reject applications with eviction history, forcing families into even worse neighborhoods with higher crime rates. These neighborhoods are often food deserts, where access to affordable, healthy groceries is almost non-existent. Without a car, you cannot drive to the discount supermarket to buy fresh food in bulk. You are forced to shop at the local corner store or gas station, paying massive markups. A gallon of milk at a corner store can cost $2 more than at a supermarket. You are paying for convenience, but it is not a luxury, it is a lack of options. The available food is often highly processed, high in sugar, and lacking in essential nutritional value. This leads to long-term health issues like diabetes and heart disease, which are expensive to treat. Cheap calories are the most expensive calories in the long run when you factor in health care. Transportation is the second largest expense, and being broke makes getting around significantly more difficult. Public transportation is often cheaper than driving, but the cost is paid in time, not money. A 20-minute drive to work can easily turn into a 90-minute commute on the bus system. That is 2 hours of lost time every day that cannot be used to work or rest. This limits the geographical radius where you can look for work, reducing your potential job opportunities. You cannot take a higher-paying job in the next town if the bus does not go there. Reliance on public transit also means you are at the mercy of delays and missed connections. Being late to work because of a bus delay can get you fired from a strict job. If you do own a car, it is likely an older, less reliable model that needs repairs. You are trapped in the beater paradox, where repair costs rival the price of a newer car. But because you cannot afford a car payment, you must keep patching up the dying vehicle. Unpredictable breakdown costs make it impossible to stick to a budget or save for the future. When the car dies, you lose your ability to get to work, threatening your entire income. Mechanics know when you are desperate and have no choice, often overcharging for emergency roadside repairs. Traffic tickets and parking fines are flat rates, meaning they hurt the poor disproportionately more. A $100 speeding ticket is an annoyance to the rich, but a crisis for the poor. If you can't pay the ticket, they suspend your license, making it illegal to drive to work. This criminalization of poverty turns a minor traffic violation into a life-altering legal and financial spiral. In the digital age, being disconnected is not an option. It is a barrier to entry. Wealthy people pay $40 a month for unlimited high-speed fiber internet at home. A poor person often relies on a prepaid phone plan with expensive limited data caps. When you run out of data, you are cut off from job applications, banking, and communication. Applying for a job on a cracked smartphone screen is slower and harder than on a laptop. This technological friction means you take twice as long to accomplish simple administrative tasks. Public libraries offer free internet, but they have limited hours and often enforce strict time limits. If you work odd hours, you cannot access the very resources designed to help you succeed. Then there is the cognitive tax, the mental energy spent constantly juggling overdue bills and threats. Studies show that the stress of poverty lowers your effective IQ by up to 13 points. Your brain is so busy calculating survival that it has no bandwidth left for long-term planning. This leads to decision fatigue, where you are more likely to make impulsive or bad choices. It is not a lack of willpower, it is a depleted mental resource caused by scarcity. Now consider the high cost of waiting, specifically within the healthcare and dental systems. A wealthy person visits the dentist twice a year for a cleaning that is covered by insurance. A poor person skips the cleaning to save money, ignoring the small cavity forming in the back. 2 years later, that cavity becomes an abscess, requiring an emergency root canal and a crown. The cost jumps from a $0 cleaning to a $2,000 emergency surgery paid out of pocket. Because they cannot pay up front, they live in chronic pain, which reduces their ability to work. This is the physical manifestation of the poverty trap. Ignoring a problem makes it exponentially more expensive. Health insurance deductibles are another hurdle that effectively blocks access to care for the working poor. If your deductible is $5,000, you are functionally uninsured for anything less than a catastrophe. You avoid the doctor for a lingering cough because you cannot afford the initial office visit fee. That cough turns into pneumonia, landing you in the hospital for a week of lost wages. Medical debt is the leading cause of personal bankruptcy in the United States, destroying financial futures. One accident or diagnosis can wipe out a lifetime of savings and hard work in seconds. Pharmacy costs force people to ration medication, splitting pills in half to make the prescription last. This reduces the effectiveness of the medicine, leading to relapses and more expensive hospital visits later. Managing chronic conditions like diabetes becomes a financial tightrope walk, where one slip is fatal. Mental health support is treated as a luxury good, accessible only to those with disposable income. Therapy costs hundreds per hour, while the stress of poverty triggers anxiety and depression daily. Without professional help, many turn to cheaper, destructive coping mechanisms like cigarettes, alcohol, or junk food. These habits are expensive in the short term and catastrophic for health in the long term. Sin taxes on these products disproportionately target the poor, acting as another regressive financial penalty. The lottery is often called a stupid tax, but for many it is a desperation tax. When mathematical probability offers zero hope of escape, people pay for the tiny chance of a miracle. We must also look at the education gap, where money buys a massive head start. Wealthy parents pay for tutors, test prep, and extracurriculars that guarantee college acceptance and scholarships. Poor students rely on overburdened public schools with outdated textbooks and exhausted, underpaid teachers. The summer slide erases learning gains for poor kids who cannot afford enrichment camps. Childcare is perhaps the most crushing expense for young families trying to enter the middle class. In many cities, the cost of daycare is higher than the rent or a mortgage payment. For a low-wage worker, the cost of childcare can consume their entire monthly paycheck. This forces one parent, usually the mother, to leave the workforce to care for the children. This creates a resume gap that lowers her future earning potential for the rest of her life. If they keep working, they often rely on unstable, unlicensed childcare that can be unreliable. If the babysitter cancels last minute, the parent misses work and risks getting fired immediately. Latchkey kids go home to empty houses because parents are working second or third jobs. Without after-school programs, these children are more likely to get into trouble or fall behind. Participation fees for sports and music exclude poor children from building teamwork and discipline skills. This isolation means they miss out on the social capital that drives future career success. Networking is a rich person's game. It is about who you know, not just what you know. Wealthy kids get internships through family connections, gaining experience without needing a paycheck. A poor student cannot afford to work for free. They must take a paying job at minimum wage. The unpaid internship is a gatekeeper that ensures only the wealthy can access prestigious careers. This creates a glass floor for the rich, where it is almost impossible to fall out. Conversely, the poor face a sticky floor, where climbing up requires exceptional effort and luck. Resume bias is real. Employers judge applicants based on their address and name. Living in a bad neighborhood can get your application tossed in the trash before it is read. This invisible discrimination ensures that even qualified candidates are locked out of better opportunities. The criminal justice system is another massive poverty trap disguised as law and order. If you're arrested, you can buy your freedom immediately with a cash bail payment. If you're broke, you sit in jail for months simply waiting for a trial. You lose your job, your apartment, and your kids, all before being convicted of anything. Innocent people plead guilty just to go home, acquiring a criminal record that lasts forever. A criminal record makes you unemployable in many sectors, locking you into poverty for life. Public defenders are overworked and underfunded, often meeting clients minutes before the actual hearing. Wealthy defendants hire teams of lawyers who delay and negotiate charges down significantly or entirely. Justice is not blind. It has a high price tag that only some can afford. Even after release, probation fees and mandatory monitoring costs drain your limited income every month. Now let us look at the pink tax on products marketed specifically to women consumers. Razors, shampoo, and deodorant for women often cost more than identical products made for men. This gender-based pricing adds up to over $1,000 a year in extra costs. If you're a single mother, you're hit by both the poverty and gender tax. Fast fashion is another trap. Cheap clothes fall apart after only a few washes. You're stuck in a cycle of constantly replacing basics like work shirts and shoes. High-quality wool or leather lasts decades, but requires an upfront investment you simply lack. Furniture follows the same rule. Cheap particle board breaks when you move to a new apartment. Rent-to-own stores prey on this need, offering furniture for low weekly payments but high totals. You end up paying 3 times the retail price for a couch or a television. The gig economy has replaced stable jobs with precarious, benefit-free, independent contractor work assignments. You absorb all the financial risks, paying for your own equipment, gas, and liability insurance. If you get sick, you don't get paid. There is absolutely no sick leave. Platform algorithms can deactivate you without warning, cutting off your income stream instantly and permanently. This income volatility makes budgeting impossible. You never know what you'll earn next week. Landlords and banks hate variable income, often rejecting applications for gig workers without pay stubs. You're working harder than ever, but accumulating zero seniority or retirement benefits for the future. Retirement is a luxury concept for those who can stop working at 65. The poor work until they physically can't, relying on meager Social Security checks to survive. Wealthy people retire on investment income that grows without their active labor input or time. Professional appearance is a hidden cost of getting and keeping a good, high-paying job. You need a suit for the interview, but a decent suit costs hundreds of dollars. Dry cleaning is an ongoing expense that eats into the budget of many office workers. If you cannot afford dentistry, your missing teeth might cost you the job interview immediately. Appearance bias means attractive, well-groomed people are hired and promoted more often than others. Being poor physically ages you faster, creating a visible marker of your lower social status. Stress causes gray hair and wrinkles, while manual labor damages your body permanently and painfully. The Band-Aid economy forces you to fix problems temporarily rather than permanently due to cost. You use duct tape on a leaking pipe because a plumber is too expensive today. The leak eventually causes water damage that rots the floor, costing thousands more to fix. Time is money, and the poor spend hours waiting in lines that the rich skip entirely. Applying for assistance requires navigating a labyrinth of bureaucracy designed to make you give up. You must take unpaid time off work to visit government offices during their limited business hours. You cannot afford to buy in bulk, so you pay a higher unit price for basic necessities. This is the classic boots theory. A $50 pair of boots lasts 10 years, while a $10 pair lasts 1 season. Over 10 years, the poor person spends twice as much on boots and still has wet feet. Banks charge overdraft fees when you have no money, punishing you for being broke. They also charge monthly maintenance fees if your balance falls below a certain arbitrary minimum. Ironically, the wealthy get free checking, free transfers, and perks because they have money. This constant financial friction creates a state of chronic vigilance that exhausts the spirit. Even moving to a cheaper city is a luxury, requiring travel costs, deposits, and a safety net, so people remain trapped in high-cost areas, bleeding money just to stay employed. Society often treats poverty as a moral failing rather than a mathematical trap. The phrase, "pull yourself up by your bootstraps," is physically impossible. Try it and you will stay on the ground. The system isn't broken, it is designed to extract wealth from the bottom to subsidize the top. Your overdraft fees and high interest rates effectively pay for the credit card rewards of the wealthy. Breaking this cycle requires more than hard work, it requires changing the rules of the game. Because currently, being poor is the most expensive job in the world. Until we address these hidden costs, social mobility will remain a myth for millions. It is time to calculate the real cost of poverty and balance the ledger. The system may be rigged, but understanding the math is the first step toward breaking the trap. If this breakdown helped you see the hidden costs clearly, please hit the like button to help us beat the algorithm. And subscribe to Pete Invests for more videos that decode the money game and help you get ahead. I want to hear from you. What is the most expensive poor tax you have personally experienced? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you in our next video.